Hello, Serious Survivor here. And it's good to be back. Been banned, I guess you'd say, or kicked off YouTube for a week. I think a lot of people have seen that and appreciate everybody the support. And since that's not the first time I've been suspended on YouTube and I've gotten strikes before, I can see that it's probably just a matter of time for me and for a lot of channels like me. But before we get further into the video, a quick word from our sponsors. Now, have you heard of shrinkflation? Yeah, shrinkflation. This is where your candy bar or your burger gets smaller, but the price stays the same, right? Have you noticed this? It's happening all the time, everywhere. But the government insists that inflation's under control, or that it's just temporary. But what do you think? Exactly. This is just inflation by the back door. Noble Gold is ahead of the game. They know with a precious metal IRA under your belt, you'll hedge those rising prices so you can retire without worrying about it. You'll keep up with the inflation that folks in Washington are trying to hide. And this month, to thank you and to get your precious metal project off to a flying start, Noble Gold is giving away a free 5-ounce solid silver America the Beautiful bullion coin with every qualifying IRA or 401k rollover. Visit www.noblegoldinvestments.com or call us at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. So I encourage everybody, and I hope everybody will come and check out some of the other social media that I have going on right now that I'll be posting a lot more on. I have the Patreon page, as you can see right here. Also, we have the Serious Survivor and Serious Survivor's website. I'm also going to be on BitChute. This video that you see on the screen right here is the one that got me suspended from YouTube, so if you haven't seen it, you can check it out there. I also have a page on Pinterest and also on Rumble too, as we can see with Rumble here. So I'm expanding out. Hopefully we'll find some other avenues that in case YouTube gets even harder to work with than they've been being here recently. But one more thing I'd like to share is that I will be doing a podcast. I'll be starting this coming up Friday the 24th, and I'm going to have 2 podcasts a week that I'll be putting links up on the channel to. And these podcasts range from 15 to 30 minutes long, and you know a podcast is generally just audio. But in these podcasts, we'll be able to talk about and look at things that I've been uncovering, a lot of things that I just simply keep getting kicked off of YouTube for, and run a risk of being banned permanently from there, because a lot of the information that we really need to see, really need to hear, and really need to talk about, we can't talk about here. We can't talk about on Facebook, on Twitter, on places like that. So the podcast is going to be every Monday and every Friday. The Monday will be basically a weekend in review, along with what's coming up throughout the week. And then the Fridays will be a weekend review and looking ahead at what's coming up on the weekend. So it's going to be very informative, and we'll be able to speak freely there, at least as far as I know right now. So I'll be posting links to those when the first one starts next Friday, and you guys check it out, because I think it'll be it's going to be very interesting, because it'll be a lot of things that we can't talk about here. What we're going to look at in this video is incentive. It's called incentives that are being put in place to have things labeled as something they may not be. And I'm going to start off by playing a short video here from one of our favorite congresswomen, and that's AOC.
Your loved one should have on their death certificate, anywhere listed on their death certificate, either as the primary or contributing cause of death. You can go back to the institution that issued the death certificate, the hospital, the physician, etc., and you can have your death certificate edited.
So we could hear from that she was advocating basically, going back and possibly having something added to these certificates that would, present the death as being. Now, we're here on schumer.senate.gov website. And you can see this is an official release from Charles Schumer himself, along with AOC. And I'm going to read some excerpts in this so that we know exactly what we're talking about here. Senator Schumer and Congresswoman AOC formally launched the Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA, hotline today to help pay for the funeral and burial of COVID-hit families. Schumer and AOC explained how New York families can apply for these dollars and the items they need to submit to FEMA. Now, this began in New York State to the best of my research, it began in New York State, but has since expanded throughout the nation. And what this does is gives families who's had a loved one that passed from COVID financial assistance for the cost of the funeral. And this financial assistance is up to $9,000 per person. So they explained that they were able to increase the maximum financial assistance to $9,000 per funeral, and that the hotline to apply for the federal funds is in the number 844-684-6333. And this number is set up to see who qualifies to receive this aid and who does not. I'm going to read a little bit more. Additionally, FEMA will only award funeral assistance for a deceased individual on a single application. So that means multiple people cannot apply for this aid for the same person or the same funeral. And it goes on to say if multiple individuals contributed toward funeral expenses, they should register under a single application as applicant and co-applicant. And the applicant or co-applicant must have incurred the funeral expenses. The deceased individual's documentation status is not considered as part of the reimbursement process, but the applicants must be U.S. citizens, legal residents, asylees, refugees, or non-citizen nationals. They also explain that now is the time for families to decide who the applicant and any co-applicants will be, and to gather the documents they need for reimbursing reimbursing these expenses. Now I will post this link also in the description of the video, but here we see a list of the expenses that it does cover: transportation, transfer of remains, casket, burial plot, and so on. It covers a lot. Cost associated with producing and certifying multiple death certificates, and additional expenses, mandated by local or state governments. We all know that funerals are very expensive these days, and it costs, on the average, between which website you go to and read the information at, between $7,000 to $9,000 or between $7,000 to $12,000 for the average funeral. But those costs can be a little misleading because that's towards the higher end of it. We can get out much more cost efficient a lot of times, but it's still, regardless, an expensive process, and it's one that's really too expensive, more expensive than it should be. Now, the concern with this is giving a financial incentive to have information added to the death certificate. And here we're going to look at another document, and I will leave the link to this document also in the description below. Initial conversations about the amount of money per death that would be made available ranged from $3,000 to $7,000. The lawmakers pushed to have the maximum amount someone can receive increased to $9,000, and that's a lot of money. And since this program has been enacted, there has been over $1 billion sent out in aid to various people across the country. And I'm all for aid for someone across the country. But the real concern about this is the fact that, once again, we see monetary incentive being used to relate one thing to another. And the documentation and the links I put up, I encourage you to read them, shows that through this program, people that had passed away between January of 2020 and through the end of 2020, when the testing was not as available as it is, say, today, that these are eligible for compensation through this program. Now, everybody needs help with funeral expenses. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the way that this is going to change numbers on down the line. And this is what we're going to see with programs like this that are being enacted throughout the nation, is that this is going to influence people to do or to ensure that certain certifications require certain or include certain terminology. And this is once again going to increase some types of numbers while it decreases others. And I hope everybody understands what I'm saying. I encourage you to read the links, check it out. This is just another thing that we're seeing enacted right now. Another program that's hiding under something good. Something good would be to pay for all funerals in the U.S. They're way too expensive for the average person to bury a loved one. These should be covered, through the Social Security or through other federal programs instead of just certain types. And what they're doing here is what we're going to see is probably increased funeral cost over the next couple of years. So people will be leaning towards this type of program as to just paying themselves. And I understand their reasoning behind that, but we have to take that into account when we look at certain numbers. Well, thanks a lot for watching. Got a lot more coming out on the channel, getting settled in down here, and things are going pretty good. So just keep an eye out. Got some really interesting. I'm doing a lot of solar stuff now, so I got some interesting solar things that we're going to be talking about, looking at how to set up solar systems, basic systems to power parts of your house or to power outbuildings and things like that. Going to be some interesting stuff. Thanks a lot for watching. God bless. And for now, Serious Survivor out.